Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastep Jr.
Hello and welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. I am so happy you joined us. My name is Ralph Eastep Jr. I'm an accountant in Middletown, Delaware. I have sort of what you would call a boutique accounting practice. It's just me. I have two support staff members who are fantastic people. So let me say hello to Taylor and Caroline because they really are the ones that really make my practice work. But I appreciate you joining me today for our radio show. And, you know, we do this every week, and we also have a podcast. If you're interested in finding out more about our practice or about our podcast, you can go to askralph.com. That's ASKRALPH.com. You can see a whole bunch of information there. If you're interested in doing some business with us, you can set up an appointment there, whatever you'd like to do, or just find out more information about it. So today, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour, and I'm going to talk about something in the tax world that's called innocent spouse. Now, there was an article written by Forbes, and he always, this particular author, I should say, wrote about this innocent spouse. So let's talk about what that looks like. So when you file a joint tax return for federal tax purposes, the law, or the tax code, you should say, holds you and your spouse what's called joint and severally responsible for the entire tax liability. Well, that's a fancy way of saying what? That means that the Internal Revenue Service may collect a tax due from both of you or either one of you. Did you catch what I just said? They can collect it from both of you or either one of you. So this is true even if you later separate or get a divorce. And it's even true if your divorce decree says that your ex is responsible for the outstanding tax debt. So pay attention here. You remain liable for the tax unless you can prove that you didn't know or had no reason to know about the liability. You're also responsible for any additional tax that might be assessed later as an adjustment or as a result of an audit. So think about that. You're filing that joint tax return. And let's say you're wondering about, does your spouse really report all their income? Is there something on here that just doesn't pass the smell test? Well, you could be responsible for that in the future if they're audited. So this could be something like unreported income or an incorrect tax deduction, credit, or other adjustment claimed by your spouse or former spouse. Now, so what are we talking about here? So innocent spouse relief. So you'd seek this innocent spouse relief from the IRS when you become aware of tax liability and you believe it is not yours. In other words, what you're saying is, that's fine. We did file a joint tax return, but it's not mine. It's my spouse's. So you're basically saying to the IRS it would be unfair to hold you responsible for the tax liability. Now, in general terms, it's only going to work if you're no longer married. Now, then there's another caveat to this, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not giving legal advice, but if you live in a community property state, the rules may be different. Community property states are Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Now, here's something you do need to know about innocent spouse. You are not eligible for innocent spouse relief if you have entered into an offer in compromise or closing agreement with the IRS for that same liability. You also do not qualify for innocent spouse relief if you've already been to court where a court considered whether to grant you relief from the joint liability and decided not to do so. Or if the court did not consider whether to grant you relief from the joint liability, but you participated in the proceeding and could have asked for relief. So how do you do this innocent spouse relief? First of all, I will suggest that you hire somebody like myself to walk you through this, but let's just endeavor to talk about it. So there's actually a form. It's Federal Form 8857, and guess what it stands for? Request for Innocent Spouse Relief. Now, you can get this right from irs.gov. You can download it as a PDF. But I'm going to tell you, it is not a simple thing to do. It's several pages long, and it asks for detailed information about your marital status, living arrangements, and finances. Now, how much time do you have? Well, the statute of limitations for claiming relief is typically 2 years after the due date on which the IRS first attempted to collect a tax from you. There are some exceptions that apply. That would be filing a proof of claim in a bankruptcy proceeding, the filing of a suit against you to collect a joint liability, or notification by the IRS of the intent to levy. Now, here's the thing. You need to be aware that any claim for innocent spouse relief requires the IRS to reach out to your former spouse, even in cases of domestic abuse. So something you want to be aware of. The IRS will then send a preliminary determination letter to you and your spouse or former spouse, and you will have the opportunity to appeal. So does this sound like a real draining process? Yes, it can be. And that's why I say it's really important that you talk to somebody like myself who can help walk you through this process, because we've got to sit down and go over that tax return or that tax liability in question and really look at it and say, okay, well, which percentage of the tax is yours and which percentage is not. So here's a real simple example and a great way to look at it, I think. Let's say you file a joint return with your husband at the time. So let's say you're the female party in a marriage and you're a stay-at-home mom. Okay, so you actually don't have any income except for, just to endeavor. Let's say you've got some interest income from a bank account that you share with your spouse. Let's say it earned $30 in interest last year. But the truth be told, when we look at the tax return, the only income on the tax return is from your husband or your wife. We could do it either way. Well, it's just for a simple example, let's say it's the husband. Okay, so the husband makes $150,000 working at Bank of America as an example. You file a joint tax return. And, for some reason, you and your husband split up and, for some reason, he didn't pay the taxes. Let's say there was a tax due. So now you owe $5,000. Well, if you came to see me, I'd say, okay, let's take a look at that tax return. Now, in this particular case, the only source of income that you actually are a party to would be that interest income. I think we said $35. So if we fill out an innocent spouse relief request, we would basically make the case that, look, I didn't earn this income. Yeah, I'm responsible for the tax on the $35. I should just assume it's a 30% tax, so I owe $7 in tax. But I certainly don't owe that $5,000 because it's not me that earned that income. So that's why this is important. You go into filing a joint tax return, I'm hoping you're making a decision based on, the fact that maybe you're still married. I see a lot of people that are going through divorce and they decide, hey, we're going to file a joint tax return. That's fine. You just have to remember that once you file that joint tax return, you are going to be joint and severally liable for any debts that come out of that. So let's say that you have a small business, your husband has a small business, your wife has a small business, and later they go around and find that there was some taxes that weren't paid or there was some income that wasn't reported. Well, then you're going to go back and we may have to look at an innocent spouse again and say, look, I had no idea that my wife wasn't reporting all of her Avon sales, or I don't know if Avon's still around, but something like that. So I hope this was helpful talking about innocent spouse relief.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Sazio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Sagio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.